Welcome to the Potential Leader Lab. I'm your host, Perry Moffmer, and today on episode 66, we're going to talk about why real leaders don't crave the spotlight, aka the bass player mentality. So here's the thing. A lot of people confuse leadership with performance. They want what I mean by that is they want the solos, the applause, the spotlight. But the best leaders, the ones who actually make a difference, they're the bass players, unseen by most people, but the reason everything works. They don't crave attention, they crave impact. And if you don't get that, you don't get leadership. So here's the deal. Life is not about starring in your own movie. It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself. And the people who figure that out don't just lead better, they live better. And this goes back to Maslow, right? Self-transcendence. It's not, because everything we talked about, craving attention and impact and all those things, that's self-actualization. That's me focused. I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to develop me, I. And now we're talking about others. We're talking about the next part of that, which Maslow said was actually the top of the pyramid, which is self-transcendence, moving beyond myself in service to others. So I need to self-actualize, but I only need to do that so I can move beyond myself in service to other people. So it has a purpose, it's not just I'm not an end in myself. So let's get into it. You're not the main character in the story. The world doesn't care about your title, your position, or how much noise you make. It never has, never will, does not currently care. The best music, the best teams, the best organizations function because of the people who make it work, not the ones demanding to be seen. And you know there are so many organizations out there, and I work with, to be honest, I have some as clients where if you bumped into the person who started and owned the company, you wouldn't know they did anything. They have so much humility. They don't want to stand out. They don't care about a spotlight. They care about creating an environment where people can do great work to serve a higher purpose. And that's what we're talking about today. So how does this connect to a bass player? Because I think we can, well, first of all, name me 10 great bass players. Like, other than Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney's a great bass player, but I don't even know if you knew Paul McCartney played the bass, right? So here's the thing. Bass players don't stand out. They don't stand in the front of the stage. They create the foundation that lets everything else come together. They play the bass line. So in an organization, the best leaders don't chase attention. They make sure that everything flows. And so a bass line connects rhythm and harmony, technically, if we're talking music theory. I'm no musician. I looked this up. One of my friends, Eric Pennington, he's great. If you listen to his podcast, The Spirit of EQ, he loves jazz. He would be all over this, right? Because it's the rhythm and the harmony. Now, I'll align those with, if in fact that's true, which I think it is because I looked it up on a couple different places. It didn't just come from, I didn't just read it on the internet. So we have the bass line connects the rhythm and the harmony. Well, if we think about rhythm as operations and harmony as vision, it creates the vision, it connects the vision and the operations. That's what bass lines do. That's what bass players do, is they construct the bass line. It's the bridge between those two things. And so there is a kind of a subtle existential thread through this conversation as well, because life, like leadership, is an open system. You don't arrive at some final glorious destination. You participate, adapt, and evolve. So this isn't about a destination-oriented thing. Now, you want to know the tragedy? Most people waste their time trying to control things instead of learning how to play in sync with what's actually happening. There is a natural rhythm to the world. I don't want to get esoteric on you, but great leaders in great organizations are aware of that. They listen. And by listen, I don't mean listen only with their ears. I mean, they listen. They're aware of what's going on around them, what's going on in the greater macroeconomic environment, what's going on with their people, what's going on with their community. They pay attention to signals, and they pay attention to connections, and they pay attention to, they notice these things. They notice signs because they're aware, they're listening. They notice patterns. Pattern recognition is a much under-discussed but vitally important leadership quality, is being able to see patterns, being able to notice patterns in people and and activities. So here's the role of the bass player in leadership. They sync the chaos into the rhythm. So again, we have things going on we're not in control of. We're not in control of a lot of things. And organizations, just like a band, can fall apart if there's no anchor holding them together. Now, the bass player isn't about rigid control. It's not about demanding that everybody be in lockstep. They adapt and respond and create a groove that allows everything else to thrive. So again, they're constantly evaluating, they're constantly listening to what's going on. If we're talking about a bass player in the band, what's going on with all the other instruments, and they're adapting to that. They're adapting the groove to allow other people to play along with that. And I think this is a great way to think about this. I love this phrase. Well, I probably love it because I created it, but I love it because we don't create moments, we create momentum. And see, the lead singer, the lead guitarist, the person who wants to be in the front, they're all about the moments. Well, what about momentum? Too many people chase those big defining leadership moments instead of doing the daily work that creates real impact, that's sustainable and scalable. And the bass line doesn't need a grand entrance. It doesn't. You ever see that with the band when the rest of the band's up there and they're playing, and then there's no lead singer, and the lead singer makes their wondrous entrance? I know way back in the day, 20 years ago, I went to see Garth Brooks in concert, and he actually was shot up from underneath the stage like 10 feet up in the air and then landed. But that was his entrance, right? But the band was already playing. And I think that's what we have to think about, because the bass line doesn't need that grand entrance. It shows up over and over again, steady and essential, right? Building momentum, not moments. And real leaders do the same thing. They value consistency over intensity. It's so, in the NFL, they talk about, they frequently say that the best ability anybody can have is availability, right? Be available. Are you showing up day after day after day? I will tell you, the one thing they talk about with leaders that earn trust. So I want you to think about this. Trust is a huge thing. Well, do you know who you trust? You trust people that are consistent. That's how you build trust, is you show up consistently. And what I mean show up, I mean physically show up, emotionally show up, mentally show up, all of those things. But you show up consistently. You're the same every day. And I don't mean exactly the same. I just mean that they know who you are and that you show up as that person every day. You're consistent. And now the other thing, this is a real interesting thing right here. Silence matters as much as sound. Good bass players don't fill every gap. They leave space where it's needed. And the same with leadership. Real influence isn't about doing more. It's about creating space for all the right things to emerge. So again, as a leader, just like a bass player, you're in the back, you're in the background. You're not out in front. Just think about this. You're creating an environment, and you're creating space, and you're creating an ecosystem for the right things to emerge. You're not forcing anything. And then the last one, to really think about this one, the insecure leader micromanages, the strong leader listens. And I want to give you another term that people go, oh, no, I don't micromanage. Oh, no, I don't. I would never do that. I don't micromanage. Well, I want you to give another way to think about micromanaging. Do you constantly give directions and take action? Are you constantly in action? Are you constantly directing? If you're doing that, you're micromanaging. So that's an insecure leader. Insecure leaders micromanage. Strong leaders listen. Strong leaders give space. Strong leaders create opportunities for people for the right things to emerge. They're patient. They create momentum, not moments. So now what we have to figure out is, how do we experiment into this? How do we explore into this? And you have to be, if you want to do this, you have to be willing to explore for the real needs, not just the reactions, not just for the solo, not just for the moment, but what's really needed. What kind of baseline is needed to build momentum, to show up consistently every day, to create that environment every day, day after day, where people can thrive and evolve. And then we have to, as we go, we bring it into existence. It's a constant act of experimentation, of adjusting and refining and letting that groove emerge instead of forcing it. Again, we have to be very careful. We're not, as a leader, we're not trying to be in charge of things. We're not trying to force things. We're trying to create an environment, and that includes a physical environment for people, putting the right people at the table and then seeing what happens as a result. And so experimentation is absolutely necessary, because as you put people together, you never know how that's going to play out for people. You never know how those interactions are going to go. So you have to constantly be adjusting the baseline as you see things happening. And that's what the evolution is constantly refining that rhythm to match what the song or your team actually needs. You're not trying to force them to play the one song that you know how to play. You're trying to put a group together and then create something new, and that baseline is helping them do that. But you can't do that if you've got a predetermined goal in your head that you have to reach. If you want the song to sound like this and like this only, then I have no idea if the people you put together are going to be the people that can do that. I just talked about this. We used another analogy the other day. We talked about, as a coach, you have two options on a different end of a spectrum, and there's grades in the middle. But I either have a plan and I find the exact right people to execute that plan, or I find great people and I create a plan for those great people to be successful. What's more likely today? Are you going to be the person on one end of that spectrum that says, my plan is perfect, I just need to find the people that are going to execute, have the capacity, talent, and will to execute my plan and listen to me? Or am I going to go out and find the very best people and figure out what plan I can create to bring those skills to life? And I think we can all figure out which side is more likely. And again, a little dose of humility in there doesn't hurt, because that's at the core of all this. So what happens when there's no bass? Take the bass out of a song. What happens? It's empty, unstable, off balance. It's all those things. Doesn't sound very good. And equate this with an organization with no leadership. There's no alignment. There's no consistency. There's no feel. Decisions that ignore momentum and culture lead to being something more or less a mechanical, soulless workplace. Yeah, we check all the boxes. We come in every day and check the boxes. We do the stuff, just has no feel to it. And by the way, leadership isn't about running around fixing problems. It's about playing a part in the song, in the whole song. It's about being that baseline in the song. And organizations don't fail because of a lack of vision. They fail because there's no one keeping them in rhythm. Any jackass can come up with a vision. I mean, I hate to say it, but visions are a dime a dozen. It's how do you get from vision to reality? And that takes someone playing rhythm. You got to play that rhythm. You got to beat that drum, because drums are also a part of bass, right? You got to create that drum beat for people so they get in step. Because if you just allow people to march at their own pace, they're never going to be in step. The same thing with rhythm. You have to create a rhythm for people so they get a feel for what you expect them to do. You know where the mistake is? So if we bounce a little bit into existentialism, the mistake is we think we can control the song instead of just learning to play within it. We are not the story. We are not the song. We are not the goal. We're part of it. So can we learn to play within it? Can we get in the flow? It's really, and it just brings up a thought, because if you ever go on whitewater rafting, they'll tell you oftentimes, if you fall out of a boat and you're whitewater rafting, the only thing you should not do is try to stand up. Because if you try to stand up, you can get a foot or a leg pinned under a rock, and then the force of the water will hold you under and you're drowned. What you're supposed to do is lean back, cross your arms and legs, cross your legs and cross your arms, cross your chest, lean back and let the water carry you out. Go with the flow. And then when you do get out to the flow and you want to swim to one of the banks, you should never swim at a 45. You never swim at a 90, right? And don't try to go directly across to the shore. Swim at a 45. Use the current to get you to your location. Go with the current. The story still the same thing holds water here. The best leaders don't force alignment. They become part of the rhythm and they shape it from within. You're subtly guiding people with that rhythm. You're not outside hammering hard boundaries for people, forcing them into it. You're creating a rhythm that brings them into alignment with you. So how do you lead like a bass player? Well, here's a couple things. Step back and feel the rhythm before you try to control it. This isn't you determining the rhythm. It's you stepping back and seeing what's going on and reading the situation and then feeling what rhythm already exists and playing along with the rhythm. Learn to sense what's actually is happening. Leadership is not about control. It's about response. It's about noticing. It's about feeling, not about control. And commit. So next step would be commit to the grooves, not to the solos. Your job is to create stability and momentum, not be the star of the show. So ask yourself, here's a question for you. Are you building something sustainable or are you chasing applause? Because I think we all want to build something that's sustainable. We don't want to chase applause. And then play the long game. A great bass line isn't good for just a moment. It carries the song from start to finish, and your leadership should do the same. But we have to have an openness to the universe and able to do this. We have to have a sense of humility that there are things going on that we may or may not understand. And we have to sense what those things are and then align people to it because it's the path of least resistance sometimes. It enables us, it's a point of leverage for us if we notice these things. And we should always chase the point of leverage because points of leverage give us a greater return for less effort. And if you aren't evolving, if you're not learning how to adjust your playing to the real rhythm of the work and your people, then you're going to fall behind and you're going to have to work harder and the people are going to feel that. And I don't think that's what anybody wants. So we've all been trained and we've all been acclimated to think that leadership means being seen, that you're out front, that you're the spokesperson, that you're the voice, that leaders lead from out front. And that's why so many leaders fail. The real ones, the ones who make a difference, don't fight for the mic. They shape the music. That's different. Because I'm concerned with something larger than applause. And great leaders create a foundation for everyone else to work. They don't force leadership, they become it. Because we shape the music that people hear. So when you shape the music, people fall in line. They start snapping their fingers and bouncing to that rhythm. They don't think anymore about it. This isn't somebody forcing them to do something. They can't help themselves. It's like when you turn on music and you watch people, they just start to naturally tap their foot and all of those things. Great leaders do the same thing. You create an environment where people want to do that, where they just want to slide into this thing and start participating because it just feels right. So here's what I'd ask you to do this week. Step back, pay attention, and think about, are you leading like a bass player? Are you locking in and setting others up for success? Or are you just trying to be the loudest person in the room? So answer that question. If it's the latter, you know what you need to do. You need to go make something worth listening to. I appreciate you spending some time with me. I look forward to speaking to you again real soon.